Thank you so much for coming today on this beautiful afternoon, Saturday afternoon. Thank you. So I've made half of this exhibition, or this part over there, especially for Cairns. So I'm going to take a lot of my time with you today talking about this new work. But because there might be some people who don't really know my work, I'm just going to give you a brief introduction about what I've done before. My work is about relationships. The first relationship I'm interested in is between us and other creatures. This work is called Unfurl, and it's in the exhibition over there. And what it is unapologetically idealized portrayal of how we would like to be with nature. We would like to have this connection. We would like to be this close. And in fact, this is a portrait of integrity. And it's really important that it's a girl that's there. It's very intentional that she has this fortitude of character and this connection, because often girls aren't depicted in this way, and it's important to me that she is. But of course, not all of us can have this kind of interaction with a bird of prey, especially if you live in Collingwood like I do. But I think it's okay to have these ideas considered in this context in an art gallery. I think it's good because we can consider them. The second work is called Atlas, and it talks about our relationship with our bodies. So we live in a time when we understand that we are completely connected genetically to everything else on the planet. Now this process happened with Darwin, but now we know through science that we share genetic material with everything. That we evolved not just concurrently, but codependently with everything else. Like we rely on the plants that evolved with us for specific kinds of nutrition. Like it's not coincidental, it's completely dependent. So we live at this time where we know this, but we also know that we can change every part of our bodies now at a really fundamental level. So the first CRISPR twins were born this year in China. So CRISPR is a gene editing technology. That's the beginning. That's the beginning of being able to control the way our bodies are going to be. CRISPR will be involved in birth, perhaps within the next decade, every birth. So that's a pretty amazing time to live in. And so I make this work because I'm saying to people, so what is it that is the essential essence of our bodiliness? You know, this is a lump of corporeality, just fleshiness. And I'm asking the question, what gives this body meaning and what animates it? It doesn't have a brain. What animates it? And now we're starting to think, well, perhaps we aren't animated by our thoughts and even our actions. What motivates us is something else. And that something else is very interesting to me, and to all of us, I think. Third relationship is with our environment. And this is a really bad picture of a huge installation that's down in Hobart. If you ever get the chance to see it, it's in Penny Clive's museum in Hobart. It's a fantastic new museum. And it's as big as this room, and you can walk into it. And so what it is a depiction of a natural space in an artificial environment, the museum. So that's interesting, isn't it? To think about these definitions and how we do it and the places that we do it. And it depicts the relationship between humans and these 12 Tasmanian devils. It's very surreal. So ultimately, all these relationships feed into the umbrella of what completely motivates me to make work about, and that is our definition of what we consider natural and what we consider artificial. That is why I make all these chimeras. That's why I do it. Because I'm interested in this definition, and things that push this definition and make it bigger and smaller are things like technology. So this is a genetically engineered child. Teenager, he's reading Friends, Kafka, he's reading Metamorphosis. He's a pretty cool guy. He's the sort of guy I would have gone out with in the 90s. When I read Kafka. I wouldn't do it now. But like there's pig in him, there's human in him, there's a bit of echidna in him, anteater. He's got, but the thing about this guy is that he's a chimera, not just between two different species, or three, but he's also got in there a bit of technology, because his back is the sole of a sand shoe. So it's an inanimate object. So in the past, we understood what was natural and artificial, because this was organic and this was mechanical. This was man-made and this was just grew up. Now all that stuff is sort of blended. It's all kind of conflated. We can't tell where one thing starts and the other thing ends. And I'm interested in this because this is happening now. Of course this is not particularly happening. This is just a story to talk about this in a conceptual, narrative, allegorical way that we can connect to. This stuff is happening in the world of business, in the world of warfare, in the world of science. And this is my way of talking about it amongst ourselves, me and you, having this conversation. And my part of the conversation is offering up these visual ideas. And people come up to them and they have a response to them. And generally it's a very sophisticated response, because everybody in this room will have an idea about this and a background. Everybody in this room will know stuff about this and they'll have their own opinion. And what I'm interested in asking is, what kinds of relationships can we have with the life that we're changing? So here we have a relationship between a mother and a child. And these are very, for me, they're very important relationships. Actually, they're important for everyone. They're so important, and I valorize them in my work. And I wonder if this is how we can relate to the life that we create. Will it be a nurturing relationship? But the other reason why I depict these kinds of relationships is because we were all children. And when we were newborns, it took us quite a long time to realise that our mothers were distinct from us. Like, we were a separate entity from our mothers. It took actually quite a few months. And so we all understand what it's like to not have boundaries. We've actually experienced it. So this is a depiction of that, and my work is all about the collapse of these boundaries. The boundaries between us and other species, between us and technology, and between us and the environment. So here's another mother. I depict a lot of mothers because I really value them and recognise how important they are. And I am a mother, and I was mothered. And so this is where I come from. So I want to share this experience. And this is the big mother. Here she is in Rio de Janeiro. She's travelled quite a long way. And so she's a baboon mother breastfeeding a human baby. This comes from my experience of learning how to breastfeed from someone else and the collapse of the barriers that I felt when I learned to do this. So everything that I've shown you has been about how nature is becoming increasingly technologized. This is the same idea. This is about how technology is becoming increasingly natural in our lives. It's becoming so natural that somebody like me could look at a machine like a Vespa and imagine that they might be deers. That this machine might have a life cycle closer to an animal than to a machine. And so here they are, these two Vespa deers. And the thing about in this, I've done a lot of these, but these guys are dueling. And that's a pretty tough thing to imagine that a machine could have autonomy. Enough autonomy and be beyond our control that they might want to interact in this way, in a negative way. Because when I was growing up, the idea that mutually assured destruction, because in the late 70s and 80s, I was on Parliament House, worried about bombs going off between Russia and America. Now they're best friends. And not being able to stop it. So, and that idea still is very, very petrifying for us. Artificial intelligence, this is the new incarnation of it. Even scientists are saying we need to look at this. And so I wrap up at the core of this work, and it's a very deep core because the surface is so beautiful and so formal. By formal, I mean it's very beautiful to look at, but really what it's about is something quite difficult. So most people say that my work is about science, and it is. Really, I'm very interested in science, but actually I'm probably more informed by surrealism. I'm going to talk a little bit about this work because it's quite an interesting one. I made this for Venice in 2003, so it's now 15 years old, and at the time the idea of growing human organs in other species was just a kind of dream. And I made this work, and here we have a pig-type mother, because that's where we'll grow organs, human-type organs for replacement in humans. In pigs, because they're about the same size and very similar to us. And in fact, we've already made, I'll get to that, but, and so that's why she's there, a kind of porcine pig figure, and she has her babies here. And if you spent any time with her, you'd come to the realization that what she's doing is thinking, because she seems sentient, she's thinking about the future of her children, because that's what mothers do. And the darkness in this work is, would you sacrifice her children to save your own? And that's quite an emotional thing. And it's incredibly ethically oriented. And if you ask me, would you sacrifice her child to save my child? My answer would be yes. Because I am a mother, and I'm human. I'm human. I'm selfish. But I also know that that is wrong. And I also know that she has rights. And I'm interested in what her rights will be. And I'm also interested in the rights of the creatures that we will create, will have. A lot of my work is quite ambiguous. Like, I don't really tell people what to think or what to think, because I don't have the answers. Like, you know, this form here, like, also, it's kind of a bit hard to understand what it is. Like, it's this sort of pregnant form with these sort of pups that are on it. It's very sensual. This beautiful hair, reclining form. It's very fecund. That's another part of it. You know, it's full of life. There's a lot of pregnancies in my work. There's a lot of children in my work. There's a lot of optimism. Like, to me, this is quite beautiful. Like, I wouldn't make it if I didn't think it was beautiful. To me, new life is just intrinsically good. And I make these works as a kind of proposition. I just want to be part of the conversation, you know, about what's possible with new technologies. I'm sort of interested in, you know, where we draw the line between ourselves and the world. And is there any distinction between what we call nature and what we call culture? This is the work that's on at Heidi down in Melbourne, and it's quite a good example of the sort of alternative world that I create. And it's another birth, a birth of these reptilian eggs and this human back and this beautiful hair, and this neck part here is a cowboy boot, and this is the sole of the boot, and this is the heel of the boot, and this is a flower. So, you know, it's not an object, not a plant, not a human, not an animal. It's a conflation of all of these. It's an intermingling of all of these things. And to me, it's really quite beautiful. Like I said before, I wouldn't make it if I didn't think it was beautiful. And what I'm really asking when I make these works is, you know, can we continue to invest in the borders that we put up around ourselves to define us as distinct from other animals? Can we invest in those borders when they're actually collapsing all around us? That's the question. And that question is becoming increasingly more important when we realise the effect that we're having on the animals around us. So many are becoming extinct. Yeah, there's a lot at stake now. It feels different from 20 years ago even. It feels really different. The art, I sort of wonder why you would make art just about stuff that doesn't matter when there's not going to be a world around. So this is another work that depicts a relationship between a boy and a dugong chimera grandmother. And yeah, dugongs are aquatic mammalian herbivores, and they're endangered. Warming waters. They're beautiful nurturers. They really care for their young, and that's where the mermaid story comes from. Yeah, and this is, you know, this is a depiction of intimacy as well. Okay, so it's 20 minutes. So one of the things that when the people come in here, they want to know, you know, how does this work get made? Well, it gets made with a lot of care and a lot of people. It starts off from drawing. This is my drawing. So I trained at VCA, and I did a lot of drawing in medical museums. Surprise, surprise. And museums of anatomy, pathology museums as well, at the College of Surgeons in Victoria. And they're almost, these are my current drawings, and they're very, very sharp, very, very neat, quite surreal. So there's no accident that my drawings translate into something like this. You know, it's like they need to be like that. I really wish I was looser. And so what happens is I I think, oh, what do I want to make work about? That's my role. And it might be about how do we understand servitude when it comes to creating life. So I make a big museum work like this, which is about that high. Or I might want to do something about insects, because that's actually where we see a lot of the impact of environmental change in insects. They're very vulnerable. So I'll make small things. Or I'll make something like this, which is about the formal qualities of the materials I use. And this is the same silicon as what this work is made of. This is what it looks like. And it's interesting that it's very natural looking. And this, to me, looks like some kind of organic bacterial growth. And when I make this, I can't control it. It just really does what it wants to do. Unlike this work, which is like supremely controlled, and like so much work goes into controlling what that material can do. So it could be a formal work like this, or it could be a public work. I made this in '99, and it was really great because people didn't realise it was an artwork. They thought, is this an ad? So it was quite interesting. Or it could be an environmental work if I have the space and the budget, which is great. Or it could be a video work, and these are quite interesting because they're very impactful. They have like a visceral response, a natural response in the body to an artificial, completely digitally animated form, which to me is like so interesting. Or they could be something like this where it's a drawing, but it's a drawing in hair. And this is a vanitas. So the vanitases are those Flemish images of flowers that you've all seen. They're so beautiful. And in these images of flowers, I should have a picture, but you see the bloom, and that's the beginning of life, and then you see the matured flower, and that's the space of flourishing, and then there's the demise, and there's the decay, and that's the place of death. And that's a great allegorical way of dealing with the idea that we're all going to die in a beautiful bunch of flowers. So that's my vanitas there. Yeah. Sometimes I need to go outside of my studio and I'll work with a foundry. I don't have a foundry in my studio. Or if I get a commission and I can make a huge public work, that is so great. And this is another time where people just didn't know what it was. Like, is it an ad for, just don't know. It's actually about evolution, but this is another hour of talking. So, yeah. And so it happens in my studio. This is a purpose-built fume room. I'm very, very interested in health because my mum was sick, so she got sick and died, and I didn't know why she got sick and why good people get sick and they die. So I don't want anyone in my studio getting sick. I don't want to visit anyone in hospital. So I'm very careful around health. So I have a purpose-built fume room, and this is the mould room where we put the silicon in. We do 20% of the time is research. We have to. This is the spray painting, because all of these works have a little bit of spray paint of colour on them. These are all the moulds. I have so many moulds of all the works for 25 years. They're sort of artworks in themselves. I reckon Louise Bourgeois, she's exhibited some of her moulds. These are some of the forms. I'm going to talk about this. This is a plasticine form. This was for a work at Goma, and this is the back of it. This is in the sculpting room. This is the hair punching room. So every hair is all done individually, just one at a time. Liz says, oh, sometimes I put two in. But like, no, it's like so much work. This is the materials we use, and these are more materials. This is the main area where we do all our work. This is another orifice. And these are some of the people in my studio. So this is the process. I think of an idea and, you know, what's it going to be about? You know, is it about the blobfish or whatever it is? And I think of this idea and then I talk to Dennis. And Dennis has been working with me for 25 years and we're very close. He's the godfather to my child. You know, I say, here's my drawing, let's make a 3D model. That will take 3 or 4 weeks, literally. And then from then on, either I work with a sculptor and I work with 3 of them, or I just output it to 3D. I'll show you. And this is Mutsumi. Sort of, you know, to make these works, it takes a team of people. Not all. The only thing she does is the seams, and she's an expert at it. Like, she's done like 100,000 hours, not 10,000. Yeah, and so you can't make this, or I can't make this work by myself. I don't really want to. I want to work with everyone and their amazing skills. This is Isabel. She does the skin, and she's expert at doing the skin. And this is Mutsumi doing the seams. This is a bad picture of me, thank you. This is Isabel and this is Alistair. He installed the work here with Peter. And we're talking about the colours. And yeah, Isabel is a filmmaker and she's just got a film in Melbourne International Film Festival. So yeah, she's super, everyone is super talented. So she makes films, which doesn't really pay. Like, documentary films don't pay, which is the world we live in. But she can get paid with me and have respect and autonomy, and I really value what she does. And she can live off this. This is one of the sculptors I work with, Lee. This is Martin. He's another sculptor I work with. So either I work with a real person and pay them, or I just get a 3D output made. I'd rather work with a real person because they get the money. But also, I just like people, just being with people, and we can change it. Here is more of the process of putting in the silicone. Here's talking about this work. Spent a lot of time discussing how things should be. This is Isabel pouring in silicone, backed up by fiberglass, but sometimes it's too small and we have to pour in silicone and have a metal rod. You know, I do make things, but I don't want the work to be limited by my technical skills. Like, the work's got to be a fantastic vehicle for an idea, and that's why I work with experts. And that's why the work's so good. And the work is not a demonstration of my practical abilities, even though I do value them. That's not what I'm about. I sort of don't want to convince anyone that I'm a great maker. That's just not me. I'm very happy to say that this is Liz. She did the punching on that, and all of them. Yeah, so she'll work 9 to 5. That head of hair took 4 weeks. 4 weeks to do. It takes a long time to do this work, and a very particular way of understanding the world and materials. You know, it takes a very special person. This is Fiona. I don't have a picture of her, but this is her work. Yeah, and so what I have is a very close connection to everyone, but also a very good understanding of, I don't do it, but I have a very close understanding of the way things are made. So, for example, the way this work came about was that every day I'd come into this room, because I'm very close to the production, you know, and I'd see the change here. I'd say, oh, that's moving. It's getting smaller. I could make shapes out of hair. And that became the idea of drawing in hair, which is an unusual idea. If you're an expert in punching hair, it's very hard to, like Liz is such an expert that she almost punches it in at the end. You don't have to cut in a hairstyle. She's so close to it. Yeah. Whereas I can come in and go, oh, let's use the same technique to do something else with it. And to her credit, she will run with it. But that's our particular skills. Oh yeah, and this is this is Alistair. This is Tox, who did the foam calming, and this is Peter. And this is he's my partner of 30 years, and this is the reason that I can be an artist. So I wouldn't be an artist without his help. It just wouldn't happen. You know, he runs our studio. He helps parent my children, our children. So that we can have a relationship with them, and I can keep working, and he can keep working. And also, you know, just when you know, the art world's like this. You know, sometimes people like you, sometimes people hate you, or sometimes you don't get a show for like 2 years. So that's hard. So it's good to go home and he can say, well, it's going to be fine. Anyway, so I'm going to talk about this work, Eulogy. I first learned about the blobfish when I went to the Melbourne Museum, because everybody was looking at this tiny little picture and laughing at it and sort of, I don't know, just sort of, it was a kind of a mixed thing. People were intrigued. Well, because what we do is we anthropomorphize this fish, and I was just wondering, well, what is this fish? Well, it's the blobfish, and it's got a Latin name which translates to big head, and it's a fish that is endangered, and it's like a deep sea fish. It's completely gelatinous, and it's being trawled to extinction because it's being caught up in the trawling for crabs, for cheap meat, and it's gelatinous, so they just throw it away. And so it's just dying for no good reason. And the thing about this fish, it's like completely adapted to its environment. Like, it can sustain the pressure of all this water because the density of its body is completely the same as and can withstand the pressure on its body. Like, it's incredible. It's one of the few fish that stays with its young, and it's like really dark down there. Like, it's a pretty intense place to live, and this guy lives there, and it's dying for no good reason. And I just wanted to make this work to sort of say, well, goodbye, my friend. I loved you when you were here, and now you're going. And I didn't want to make a work that sort of was very sort of sort of recriminating, sort of saying, you're the culprit, you know, you guys have done it, you crab-eating first world capitalists. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to make a work that showed this relationship between a kind of person that normally might not know that this fish is dying out. They might not maybe care, but they don't know. And here he is, this ordinary fellow, with the fish as it's becoming extinct. This beautiful, hapless, incredibly amazing creature. It's very, very sincere work. There's no irony. Like, it's really, you know, in 100 years' time, it's in the National Gallery. People are going to look at this work and go, yep, this community is interested in these animals that are becoming extinct. And this is one of the things, this is one of the ways that they're relating to that happening. So this is the surrogate, and I'm very interested in the animals that are on the way out, because they're on the way out. I just thought you should see what a northern hairy-nosed wombat looks like. So there's 3 species of wombats, and the northern hairy-nosed wombat is like 1 metre long. And there's like, I don't know, between 25 and 40 of them left. And they live in New South Wales, and the reason why they're dying off is because we're encroaching on their land. Like, it's not an unusual story. And you know, they're magnificent creatures, and they are affected not only by encroachment but also by climate change. You know, they don't reproduce if there's not enough moisture in the air. They're very sophisticated, attuned creatures to their environment. And scientists were thinking about 20 years ago when I made this work, oh, what we're going to do is we're going to take the embryo, because they all have embryos, they just don't grow. We're going to take these embryos and we're going to put them into the common wombat, which is in Victoria. And they're like half the size. And at the time I thought, wow, that's crazy. Like, why would you want to have a ginormous baby in you? Like, that's crazy. It just seemed really insane to me. But it was to me, it was like good intentions. Like, you know, we might do the wrong thing for good reasons. And I thought, yeah, I sort of want to talk about this with people. This creature, my designed creature, because remember, I'm interested in why we would create new life. And my reason to create new life is to help old life that's endangered survive. That's the reason why I would do it. And in fact, in Australian history, we've always had good intentions. Like, why did we introduce the cane toad? Because we wanted a natural solution to the cane beetle. We didn't really want to put more pesticides, so we'll have a natural solution. So they weren't trying to do the wrong thing. They were trying to do the right thing, but it just got out of control. So anyway, so this is my proposition. So if we create a new life to grow 6 babies, you know, is this the lengths that we might want to go to undo the damage that we've done to the environment? And it's not such a crazy thing when you think about, let's clone the thylacine. Like, it takes a lot of money to do that, to clone a long ago dead creature from a bit of DNA from a specimen. It takes a lot of time and effort. So I'm interested in the idea that we might be interested in a technological solution to a problem that's actually very simple. You know, just stay away from their environment. But you know, at the time, this is what I was thinking. So 20 years later, things seem even more intense. Like, it's sort of like this is happening more and more. Like, there's this new verb, the die-off. So I made this work with this. She's called the shadow bat. Now, if you look at the skeleton of a bat, her wings are just like, the whole wings are just digits. They're like this. They're just like, they have the same skeleton. And so her toes have become this shadow mechanism to keep, because the bats are at the top, to keep the sun off them. So my question is, you know, is this the kind of evolutionary trait that they'd have to evolve for them to live? And of course, that's not possible or even desirable. But this is a proposition. This is a way of talking about it. And it's kind of trying to do it in an open-ended way. And so this is the batong. And batongs are, they're also in trouble as well. That's what they look like. They're like these little, you must know them. They're like these little guys like this, and they're just absolutely adorable. But they're incredibly important because they eat truffles. And they generally only eat truffles. And these truffles are really important for plants because the truffles, which are kind of a fungus, they take minerals from the soil and feed them to the plants. And the plants feed the truffles, this sort of mycelium-oriented organism, they feed them carbohydrates that they make from the sun and the air. So it's a really fantastic, and these truffles keep the plants healthy. But these guys eat them and then poo out all around the spores. And so they're really important, not just for in themselves, but for the plants. And they're being endangered because of, that's the scale of them. They're endangered because of feral cats and dogs. So I just thought, well, maybe we need to breed, and we're such good breeders. We need to breed a species of the bettong, which is a bit more aggressive and just can fight back to those feral cats, you know? And so it's got these hard-boned pieces, and she can hold her own. And she's got a baby, if you notice. So this is what an evolutionary tactic could look like. Just an idea. Generally I don't make work which is so aggressive because I find it really scares people. Like nobody would want this in their home. But I kind of think, yeah, well, there's a reason why she has to be so defensive, because she has to protect herself. Oh, so cute. And she's a reason to defend herself and her progeny. Yeah, the other thing is turtles. You have this majestic leatherback turtles, and like most turtles, they eat jellyfish. And plastic bags in the water look like jellyfish. This is a leatherback, and that's actually a jellyfish. So they look the same. So this is a big problem with animals eating plastic. And of course, it's like these turtles live to be quite old, and they don't actually reproduce until they're quite old as well. So I just thought to myself, I'm going to present an idea where this turtle could be a kind of cleaner-upper. You know, she's a cleaner-upper, and so she has this. And I've always really wondered what's inside the shell. What goes on in the shell? Well, now we know. They intake the water and they clean it, and so that she doesn't have to eat plastic. You know, this is a story. You know, this is a myth. This is a mythological creature, and it's just a way of talking about this stuff in a kind of open-ended way. I'm not an expert. I don't want to be, and I know that there are lots of fantastic and amazing and altruistic and well-meaning scientists who are really trying to figure it out. And I'm part of that conversation with you guys, but my conversation is a very open-ended one. Interestingly, there have been some ideas around sort of vacuum cleanery mechanisms to clean the water, which are not dissimilar from this. But yeah, this is a work that talks about this. And you know, there's a lot. This hair is my daughter's hair, so it's very, very, very close to me, and it's also very close to other people who come to it, and who can understand the issues around it and why, you know, this work, you know, might hold some, you know, some interesting things to say about our world. I'm very, very interested in the coral as well. Yeah, so I think the coral was the most emotional part of, because I came here to find out all about this stuff, and I think the coral was the most overwhelming and terrifying thing that I had to confront. Paralysing to me to make a work about it, because the barrier reef is just so important, and just the problems are so overwhelming, and I just to make a work that that can be part of that whole conversation. And of course my desire would be to be really positive, and I'd love to have a solution. I'd love to be part of the solution. I'd love to, and of course I don't have the answer, and so that's my journey around this. But I did make these works, and I guess what they are is a kind of celebration around beauty that coral has. You have beauty, and the idea that we can maybe bring some of that into our lives in some way. I'm not sure how that can be in the future. Maybe it might be, conflating it and finding a purpose that's, that's part of our everyday lives. I don't even know what to say. This is the last work that I made for here, and I guess what happens when I make these works is my dream is that people come to it and they kind of experience an emotion that they haven't felt before, or that you rarely feel. And that emotion we don't even have a name for. Actually, we do feel it sometimes. I feel it quite a bit, actually. I think people do. And that emotion is feeling yourself warm to something that you originally found difficult. So up until quite recently, I thought that we felt emotions in our brains, because I thought emotions were about thoughts and feelings, but I've realised that we feel emotions in our bodies. People in drama always say it. It's true. You feel your emotions in your body. So when you look at a work like this, I think a lot of people go into it like this, with tension in their bodies, because it's kind of a bit scary. It's kind of a bit different. It's unknown, and so you have tension in your body. But I really hope that what happens is the more time they spend with it, is that their bodies slowly open up and relax. And that is when you feel yourself open up to an idea. And once your body is open and relaxed, and it's an emotional response, then your brain can engage with an idea. Like if you see people walking around galleries like this, what they're doing is thinking, I don't understand art history, and I don't know what this means, and I think I'm feeling a bit stupid. So I don't want that. I want people to kind of relax around my work and engage with the ideas. And you can't engage with an idea if you're like this. I'm overemphasizing it. It's just something you feel inside your body. So this is what I want for this work. And it's based on the humpback dolphin, who was only identified in 2014. So we've got around 33 species of dolphins, but this species was only identified recently. And of course, they're endangered, of course. And they have this beautiful sort of warm pinkness about them. I think what actually happens is this. people look at it and they go, oh, gross, or oh, I don't recognise this. This is not real, this is not natural, this is strange. And so they're sort of pushed away, you know, and they sort of go, oh. And then, actually, that wouldn't be too bad. I actually wouldn't mind having this kind of a situation. Even if she's kind of different, or even if she's a bit droopy or a bit strange, that's not bad. And they sort of, you know, they sort of open up to it. And it's this opening up of the space where you're not quite sure what you think. Do I hate it? Do I love it? But you come to your own realization about how you feel about changing nature and our role in it.
Thank you so much, Patricia, for your generosity.